Hello, folks. It is Carla from Rehan's World of Connections, and I am going to be inviting Mohammed, Amin, in to talk with me. And today it should work without any problems whatsoever. He has his earbuds. We've set everything up, and it should be perfect. Of course, whenever you say that, that's when things go crazy for the most part. But I think this should be pretty well set at this point in time. And I'm just waiting for him to join. And like normal, this program is sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which is an online organization promoting peace around the world with one conversation at a time. And I am looking forward to speaking with Amin, who should be here any second, and we are going to talk about his Jewish-Muslim connection, and also we're going to talk about getting a smile on his face, because we know that when we smile, our whole body begins to relax. So, he should be here. We're just waiting for him to join. Hi, Abrar. I haven't seen you for a while. How are you doing? Oh, what a day. Well, I know he's going to be here because he and I just spoke. And life is good. I hope you're out there and smiling and laughing, because those two things are what helps to bring peace within our own bodies. But also, when we are peaceful, then the world becomes peaceful. It's up for the individuals of the world to be peaceful in order for the world to be peaceful. And having said that, and here he is, I am about to bring him on camera. And I can, yay, it's working. And he should be here any second. Only, why? Okay, let's try this again. It's adding you now. Okay. Amin, you got to do me a favor. Put a smile on your face.
Yes, certainly.
That's a new rule that I have for anyone who speaks with me. They need to have that smile. And can you laugh?
Yes, I can.
I want to hear you laugh. I haven't heard you laugh ever.
How is that?
So today when we're talking, you and I are both going to smile and laugh more. Okay? Can I get you to do that?
Okay.
Let's start, Amin. Should I be calling you Amin or Mohammed, first of all?
Call me Amin. because my name was the wrong way round in the school records.
What do you mean it's the
When I
wrong
was
way
from
around?
between the ages of 3 and 11 at my school,
Can
I
you
was in the
talk a
school records as
little
Amin.
louder because I can barely hear you?
Well, the reason that you can barely hear me is that the earbuds are also got a built-in microphone, and it's the microphone of the earbuds that you can hear
Okay.
rather than the microphone of the phone.
Oh boy. I need you to talk a little louder so you can be heard well.
Right.
And
Is there any way?
explain to me why your name is confused.
Well, as I said, between the ages of 3 and 11, in the school records, I was in the records as Amin first name, Mohammed second name. It was corrected when I went to another school at the age of 11, but by then I was in the habit of being called Amin
Talk
rather
up
than
because
Mohammed.
I can barely hear you and I need to hear you. And so does
Right.
everyone else
As I said,
out there.
let me see if I can put in the microphone into the phone, because that may override the built-in microphone of the earbuds. So
Yeah,
that
let's
might solve
see.
the problem. Is that louder?
Talk with it near you. Yeah. Yes,
Can
now
you
I
hear
can
me
hear
through
you.
this microphone?
Very good.
Right. Well, let me attach this to my clothing because it doesn't need to be held. Right. How
Perfect.
is that?
Now explain to us your name.
Excellent. Right. So start from the very beginning then. In the small village in Pakistan where I was born, my mother gave me a single name,
Smile.
Muhammad Amin. One word. Right. So Muhammad Amin. When I came to the UK and went into the school system, the name was divided into two parts, a first name and a second name. But the first name was entered in the school records as Amin and the second name as Mohammed. And that's how the school knew me from the ages of 3 to 11. At the age of 11, I went to a different school, and my father needed, because I had no birth certificate, my father needed to swear a legal declaration that he was my father, what my date of birth was, etc. And of course, he gave my name to the lawyer's clerk as Muhammad Amin, which is how he also knew me. And they entered it into their records as Muhammad Amin. So from the age of 11 at my secondary school and for the rest of my life, legally I have been Muhammad Amin, two words. But my friends got used to calling me Amin. The other thing is that amongst Muslims of South Asian background, Muhammad by itself is not used as a pure given name. So you don't get people calling each other Muhammad and just saying, Muhammad, come here, or Muhammad, what do you think? And for both of those reasons, I've always used Amin as my given name with friends, both inside my family, with my work colleagues, with my personal friends, etc.
That's interesting. I remember Rehan once telling me there's so many Mohammeds that you're going to need to talk to people and ask them what they want to be called. Do they want to be Mohammed or do they want to be Amin or whatever their second name is? And he explained to me that the second name is really the first name because of that.
Well, many people have multiple given names, of which Muhammad tends to be one of them, but they tend not to use Muhammad, A, because it's so common, and secondly, because of its religious connotations. Although I have learned that amongst Arabs, it is quite common to be addressed as Muhammad.
Okay, and where's that smile? I wanted to you smiling and laughing more. so you don't look so,
Right. Right.
you don't have to be very serious. Now, you
Right.
were, let's get back to why we're talking. We're talking about your British organization of Muslims and
Yeah.
Jews. And what is the name of that again?
It's called the Muslim Jewish Forum of Greater Manchester.
And how long has it been in being?
We were incorporated in June 2005. We are legally a corporation, in the same way that some American churches are corporations. For example, the church just dropped one of my earbuds. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, for example, is a
I never
corporation in the
knew
USA.
that.
Yeah, I'm very interested in the Mormons, so I'm quite
Oh,
close to them.
really? What gave you that interest?
Yeah. Well, when I was in my early 20s, I read about a third of the Book of Mormon. I've always been a very wide reader,
Smile.
but I didn't have any active right, I didn't have any active contact with Mormons until 2011, when at an event in London, I met the head of public affairs for the London area. Started talking to him, exchanged cards. He then contacted me and invited me to an event. Couldn't attend the first thing he invited me to, but I was able to attend the second one, where I met more Mormons. And starting from that initial contact with one person, I'm now in a situation where I have met 3 of the 15 most senior Mormons in the church hierarchy.
And what have you learned from them?
It's networking. What I've learned is not so much about the details of the religion, although I knew quite a lot about the religion anyway, and I have read one book in particular about the history of the church fairly recently. But more, what struck me was how strong the Mormons are on family values, and also how their religious beliefs are very helpful to personal success, both in your family life and in your career. Because I'm a great believer that religious belief practiced properly is conducive to personal success, and that applies irrespective of what you think about the truth claims of the religion. Because by definition, all religions cannot be true on the grounds that they say different things, they assert different truth claims. But if you have a religion that encourages you to take very good care of yourself, encourages you to avoid harmful foods, encourages you to avoid alcohol, believes in hard working, believes in enormously strong personal integrity and honesty, that is very likely to help you succeed in any kind of career or business. And that's what I found from my one-to-one contacts with large numbers of Mormons.
Wow. Now, how did you, this is off topic, but I'm really interested. How did you meet the
Yeah.
Mormons, and what brought you to wanting to know about them?
Well, as I said, it started. Well, as I said, it started with meeting one person at random at a function. I'm a member of something called the Conservative Christian Fellowship, which is the conservative element word there is relates to the British political party. And I was at their annual Wilberforce lecture, and during the reception, I saw somebody standing there who wasn't talking to anybody at that precise moment. So I trained myself in that situation to go and talk to them. So he was the head of public affairs for the London area that I mentioned before. And from that one connection, he introduced me to more people at a later event that I was invited to. And one of the people I met at that second event got in touch with me a few months later to say that one of the quorum of the 12 apostles wanted to come to the UK and hold a dinner for senior British Muslims, and would I help him to choose appropriate senior British Muslims to invite. So I did. So, as I said, if you're willing to engage, a single connection can grow and multiply, and you end up knowing far more people.
Now, you said something that really perked my interest because I never expected to hear this. You said the Mormons have a real strong connection to human values. Now, I know in the Muslim
Yes.
religion or in Islam, the men can have up to 4 wives. But, and to me, that seems a little strange. I mean, I've been told that. The Mormons can have, as far as I know, as many wives as they want. How does that create an intense family value? I would think it would hurt the family.
Well, first of all, you're about 120 years out of date.
Good.
The Mormon Church, abo- the Mormon Church abolished polygamy quite late in the
Really?
1800s. I couldn't give you the precise year, but it was in the late 1800s. There are breakaway Mormon factions, very small breakaway fringe groups that still practice polygamy, but the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, headquartered in Salt Lake City, prohibited and has prohibited polygamy since sometime in the 1800s. As I said, I couldn't give you the precise date without looking it up, but I think it was round about the same time that Utah was given statehood.
Wow. So that stopped many, many years ago, and yet many people think of the Mormons as a religious organization where the men can have as many wives as they want.
Well, what influences those people? As I said, there are small breakaway Mormon churches uh, which do practice polygamy even today. And of course, they get magazine coverage,
Right.
they get television coverage. And even though the main Mormon church with 16 million members does not practice polygamy, they don't get as much media attention from that perspective as these breakaway factions, which are tiny in numbers.
Very interesting. Where's your smile? That is interesting. You said family values, and I thought that right away, and
Yeah.
you cleared it up for me. I literally never knew that. Now,
And the
go
Mormons
on.
I've met, and the Mormons I've met, as I said, have very strong personal family values. You can tell how much they care about their children, grandchildren, their husbands and wives. It's very inspiring.
That's really nice to hear. Talking about that, I don't want to go into it deeply, but in the Islam religion, I know that the men can have multiple wives. Has that also been found to be an antiquated idea, or is it still happening?
It still happens, but the incidence is far less now than in the past. I mean, and normally there are special reasons. For example, the house where I lived in the 1980s, literally our next door neighbor, he was a polygamist. His first wife was unable to have children, and rather than divorcing her and leaving her as a single woman by herself, the man took a second wife, and the family lived together with the children by the second wife. It would, and the first wife, she had a sort of proper status and position inside the family. She was able to get these psychic benefit you have from growing up with children, even if they're not your own children. So, as I said, these were my next door neighbors. I saw it working. All of the adults now are deceased because we're talking more than 30 years ago. It would be wrong to claim that she felt or was identical to the second wife. That wasn't my perception. She was sort of slightly second-class status in the sense that she wasn't the woman who had the children. But I think her life as a person was a far better life than it would have been if her husband had simply divorced her and sent her away.
Why do you say that?
As a woman who has been divorced because she is barren, she would have been unlikely to successfully remarried, and living by yourself, particularly in Pakistani culture, is, I think, historically quite difficult. I mean, obviously times change. We're now 30 years onwards in time, but you have to assess people's situations as they are in and look at the realistic alternatives that would have been open to them.
Wow. So, in Pakistan or even throughout the world, are Muslims not marrying more women? Are they becoming to be a monogamous type relationship more than polygamous?
Well, numerically, most Muslims are not in polygamous relationships. If you think about the mathematics, they couldn't be. Because on a worldwide basis, there's roughly the same number of Muslim men and Muslim women. And you find polygamists typically either in very high status situations where you may get the emir of a Gulf state, for example, with having multiple wives, or there may be special situations like my previous neighbor that I mentioned, and sometimes you get cases of what I would describe as really sort of bad behavior, where somebody has a wife and children, and then chooses to take on a second wife and have more children, and quite sometimes in a situation where they can't really afford to maintain them all anyway. I mean, one of the key religious principles is that if you're going to have more than one wife, you need to treat them equally, and you need to be able to maintain them.
I'm glad to hear that said. That, to me, is important. So, the whole idea of Muslims having more than one wife is not something that happens on a regular basis anymore.
Well, it depends on what you mean by regular. It happens. I'm a mathematician by background, so regular means, does it happen a reasonable amount? Does it happen sufficiently frequently that it is not incredibly exceptional? The answer is yes, it is regular. Is it anywhere near 50%? No, it's not.
Okay.
And what percentage it is will vary from country to country, culture to culture, economic status to economic status.
Now, do you still go back to Pakistan and visit at times?
I personally haven't set foot in Pakistan since I left the country at the age of 1 3/4 in 1952. Different reasons at different stages in my life. Initially, it was straightforward, it was poverty. Now, what keeps me away from Pakistan is that I don't regard it as a particularly safe country with the levels of crime and terrorism. And I don't have any strong emotional connections with my extended family in Pakistan as a result of negligible contact for 66 years. My sister, who has lived in Pakistan for about 1.5 years at one stage, goes to Pakistan more frequently than I do. She might go once every sort of 5 or 6 years, maybe, depending upon what the reason might be. And different people vary. There are other British Pakistanis who will go to Pakistan several times a year. But my own physical connections with Pakistan are attenuated to the point of almost complete disappearance. I've never been back.
Do you ever think, oh, I should go visit Pakistan?
If it became a safe country to visit, then I would be happy to go and visit it. But at the moment, I don't regard it as sufficiently safe. And not just terrorism, but routine crime as well.
I've heard both sides. I've heard people say, oh, there's routine crime. And then people who have been there said, oh, no, it's not there. It's really quite wonderful and magical.
Well, let me give you one simple statistic. Pakistan is the foreign country in which more British citizens are murdered every year than
Wow.
any other country. Now, that's partly, of course, because there are an enormous number of British citizens of Pakistani origin, and many of them visit Pakistan. But also, it is an indicator of relative levels of crime, because, of course, far more British people visit France every year than visit Pakistan. But the numbers are, quite clear. I'd have to look at the actual data, but I read that from a sort of quality newspaper source, and I have no reason to doubt the accuracy.
Wow. Very interesting. Now, let's get back to the topic that was at hand. I'm
Right.
sorry, you just
Yeah.
hit a topic that I've been curious about for a long time. So,
Right. Anyway, I'm glad we've sorted out all the sound problems that we had
isn't
last
it
week.
wonderful when the sound is gone, is right? It's fun to have these conversations because we learn about each other.
Yeah.
In ways, I had
Yeah.
a lot of misconceptions and you cleared them up today. In fact, I may
Right.
want to do this again with you so you can clear up some other misconceptions. But as
Right.
we are talking, tell me a little about your British Muslim collaborative that you have, that you started back in 2005. See, I have been listening.
You mean the Muslim Jewish? Yeah, the Muslim Jewish Forum of Greater Manchester. As I said, its goal is very simple. It's to bring Muslims and Jews in Greater Manchester closer together, both so that they can cooperate on issues of practical mutual interest, for example, campaigns to protect the right to practice religious slaughter, but also simply to encourage the two communities to get to know each other better, to establish friendships. And in the 14 years or so that we've been going, I believe we have made a major difference to the overall relationship between Muslims and Jews in Greater Manchester. That was our very geographically limited objective, and while obviously there is far more still to be done, I think we have made a difference. That's all that matters.
What are some of the biggest changes with the goals you have that you've seen?
Well, the first thing is at holding events, we get more and more attendance at our events from both Jews and Muslims. When we first started, our events were heavily dominated by Jewish attendance rather than Muslim attendance, and I can explain why that might be later on. But as time has gone on, the proportion of Muslim attendance has increased steadily, and that's extremely encouraging. Our organization is embedded in the overall structure of Greater Manchester, particularly interfaith organizations in Greater Manchester, but also relationships with the city council, with the mayor of Greater Manchester. So, and little things come as offshoots from it. So, for example, I have been giving an occasional religious broadcast on BBC Radio Manchester, which is a local radio station, part of the national BBC, since 2011. And I know that I wouldn't have been asked to do that had it not been my involvement with the Muslim Jewish Forum, which in turn brought me into contact with some members of the Anglican Church. And it was actually an Anglican clergyman who put my name forward as a possible speaker to BBC Radio Manchester. And that appearance every so often, I've done about 50 in sort of 8 years, programs. on the Sunday mornings when I do it, and I did one a few weeks ago, gives you an audience of about 50,000 people and a message that you can share. My most recent one, in fact, was built around the story of Ruth and Naomi.
Can you tell me that story?
Yes, I mean, you must be familiar with it, but what's surprising is how many people in British society now don't know the story at all because levels of religious literacy keep going down. The story of Ruth and Naomi starts with Naomi and her husband and their two sons, and they move from the land of Israel to the land of Moab, not very far away, but inhabited by a different people with a different religion. And the two sons both take Moabite women as wives. And then, sadly, the husband of the family, Naomi's husband, dies. Then her two sons both die. So what you've got now is a family of three women, a woman, Naomi, and her two daughters-in-law, who are both widows. Naomi is too old to ever have any more children, and she's not married at the moment either. And so she decides that she will go back to her own family in the land of Israel. Her two daughters-in-law escort her to the sort of boundary of Moab, and at the frontier she says farewell to both of them. One of the daughters-in-law, I mean, all the people in the Bible are named, but
It's
I can't remember
okay.
the other daughter-in-law's name. She kisses Naomi and says farewell to her and heads off back to her own family. But Ruth decides on the spur of the moment that she won't leave Naomi. And she says to Naomi, where you go, I will go. Where you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. And where you're buried, I will be buried. And so she goes with Naomi into the land of Israel. And the two women are living in Israel for survival. They're basically dependent upon Ruth's gleaning activities. Gleaning is what happens in agriculture when farmers are not allowed under Jewish law to harvest their crop right to the edge of the boundary. You have to leave a little bit for poor people who may come and take that, which has been left, and that process is called gleaning. And Ruth was gleaning in a field owned by a man called Boaz, and Boaz takes a liking to her. She's young, attractive. He even instructs his workmen to leave slightly more uncut wheat than they normally would, and so that Ruth can actually be more successful at her gleaning. The outcome of this eventually is that Boaz and Ruth get married, and Ruth's great-grandson is King David of Israel. And one of her further descendants, of course, through many generations, is Jesus of Nazareth.
Really?
Yeah. I'm surprised that you're not familiar with the book of Ruth yourself, given your Jewish background.
At one point when I was younger, I was very, very Jewish. But as I grew up, I guess when I was in college, well, all through my life, I was very interested in multiculturalism and interfaith. And I have to admit, I knew all of that at one point, but I've kind of walked away from it a little, and I haven't followed it as closely as I used to. Because as you told the story, it all came back to me, but it wasn't something that I have kept in my awareness a lot.
Right. And I use the story as part of a slightly longer piece. I mean, the total length of my piece was only 90 seconds. That's the amount of time the BBC gives you. About the importance, about how your life is made up of two things. One of the things that which you cannot control, the circumstances of your birth, your genetic inheritance, how your parents bring you up, the country you're born in, etc. But other things that you do control are your own decisions, and both big decisions and small decisions, and the two together are what make your life. The full text of my thought for the week, I always put on my website. There's a thought for the week section, menu item in my website menu, where I've got the text of all of 50 of my thoughts for the week presentations. Not the actual sound recordings, because those are copyright the BBC, but the actual words are all available. So if you want to read what I read out to the radio audience a couple of weeks ago, you can find that on my website.
Can you put your website here and also in our messenger chat? I'd like to look at it. But let people here know it.
Shall I just type it?
When we go off...
let me just type it. I'm just going to type the URL
but
now.
But I
so
also want it in my chat with you so I can find it. I would love, and I don't know if you have the time to do it, for you to come to the Learn English by Speaking English show and speak.
I'm sorry, I was distracted by my typing, so I didn't catch what you said.
Okay, let me say it again. I would love to have you come to the Learn English by Speaking English show and talk to the participants and even talk to me about the differences in religion. And let's educate people on some of the things you're educating me on right now.
Right. I'm not sure I would have the time to do that. That's the real issue, because I mean, I'm willing to have a go, but it's not something I will be able to do very regularly.
I'm not saying regularly, maybe once every few months, but I would love you to come.
Right, okay.
I never want anyone there regularly, because this gives a chance for other people to come and for other people to grow with it. If it's regularly, then it becomes boring. Not boring, but it also becomes... oh, today it's this person, I'm not really interested, I'm not coming. I like the diversity is just as important as the regularity of the show. And the show is basically to get people speaking in English. But you would absolutely be a guest that everyone would learn a lot from.
Okay, well, let's give it a try.
Okay, we'll talk about it. Do you have any words of wisdom that you would like to share with everyone about multiculturalism and interfaith connections?
Yes, the two key principles are, first of all, when you engage with people of other religions, you need to understand that it should never be your objective to try to persuade them to join your religion, and there is also no point in trying to debate or argue about which religion is better than another. It's a completely non-productive activity. Your goal should be simply to learn about other people and to be willing to talk about your own religion. And one of the things you will find is that you learn a great deal more about your own religion simply because you need to explain it to other people.
And that's so very true. The more you meet people of different religions, the more you realize how much the religions are alike, or that there's some diversity there.
That's right. And the other message is that talking to people who are not like yourself is a very enriching process and experience.
And that's why I do this with Rehan. I can't tell you how much I've learned from talking to people from all over the world.
Right.
And with that, I told you I would only keep you half an hour. We're over that half hour.
Right.
So,
Okay. Okay, but I'm glad we sorted out the technology so that we can actually get a good picture and good sound without any
Can we do
interference.
it again?
Yes, I mean, as I said, now that I know how the technology works, it's
I
quite
told you
straightforward.
that in the beginning.
Right. Right.
Now, I want you to go out with a smile and some laughter. Can I get you to do
Right.
that?
Right. Yes, I think you can. Right.
Thank you so much, Amin, for speaking with me tonight.
Okay. So, now, is this chat being recorded
I'm
and will it
going
be
to
available somewhere
actually
afterwards?
send it to you once it's up.
Right.
It'll be available on my page.
Okay.
It can be available on your page too.
Yeah.
In fact, it probably is because I tagged you, but you can put it
Right.
anywhere you want.
Okay. I'll wait to hear from you. Send me an
I'm
email
going
or
to,
a messenger message.
well, I'm
Email is the
going to
best, I think.
send you the copy through Messenger when I'm done. Now there
Okay.
may be,
Right.
I'm not sure how we can get it off of, oh, I may know how to get it off of Facebook so you can put it anywhere. But you're going to have to give me a chance
Right.
to do that, and I'll send you that link too. Thank
Okay.
you
Thank you.
so very much for your time. I really learned a lot from you.
Right. Okay. Glad to
Okay,
help.
let's wave goodbye, people.
Right.
This conversation was
Okay.
sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which uses technology as a way to create peace through conversation, like the one
Right.
Amin and I had just now. We'll see you later and bye.
Okay. Right. Bye.